Amazing Five. Let's bring on, we don't bring it on, usually we bring them on at Thursday. We weren't on the air yesterday. We said, let's bring Greg Cosell on, first hour on Friday. It's our NFL meat sandwich. What a pleasure for me. 41 years NFL film was my friend, somebody I just love his stuff, and he is now joining us, brought to you by Mercedes-Benz, the best or nothing. So I've always been a fan of Carson Wentz. This was classic Carson Wentz, sort of just taking what they give him. Where do you stand with Carson Wentz after a reasonably strong performance? Did you see some confidence gained from a couple of weeks earlier?
Well, Colin, I've always been a believer that you have to evaluate quarterbacks in a vacuum. You have to isolate the way they play, separate from the team. And I think Wentz was better last week. I still think there are things he's not seeing clearly, and he's missing some throws because of it. And when I say missing throws, he's not turning it loose. He's just not getting a clear picture. But he was more accurate last week. He made a couple of plays we think of as Carson Wentz plays. And certainly the long touchdown in the fourth quarter was a great throw. Yes, it is a team that lacks weapons, but I think then it becomes incumbent upon the coaching staff to schematically do things that help the quarterback in terms of defined reads. The Eagles tend to run a lot of what we call individual and isolation routes where they ask their receivers to win one-on-one. That's fine if you have great receivers. If you don't have great receivers, you need to help them with your concepts, stacks, bunches, motions, rubs. You need to do more of those kinds of things.
So they face the Steelers in a captivating game. Pittsburgh's defense, and this is Mike Tomlin's forte, it's very good up front. On film, is it the best you've seen? Like, what are its strengths? What does it look like on film?
I think it's the best defense in the NFL, to be honest with you. I think they're very good at all three levels. They're really good in their sub-nickel and sub-dime with their down four rushing the quarterback, and they have really good blitz packages. Their slot corner, Mike Hilton, is as good a blitzer from the slot as there is in the league. And on the back end, they are really good with disguise, with late movement. They cause a lot of problems for quarterbacks. To me, they're a really good defense, and this is a tough matchup for the Eagles.
Yeah, I think so too. Pittsburgh's healthier and rested. All right, so I can talk about Mike Nolan being a little outdated as a journeyman defensive coordinator. What worried me the most was the lack of effort on that reverse with OBJ. It looked like multiple players were like jogging down the field. Is it schemes? Is it personnel? DeMarcus Lawrence is still active, but he's not very productive. Jalen Smith is
right.
He's not filling lanes. What is it with them? Is it a personnel? Is it schematics? What does the tape say on the Cowboys defense?
You know, I always am fascinated by certain narratives that get thrown out there. Last week, their D-line got moved by double teams very easily. I didn't think Jalen Smith had a very good game. I didn't think he saw things particularly well and was a beat late to react. But I know a lot of people have been talking about, boy, they're doing a lot of things. You know, there's too much. I find those things interesting. Bill Belichick's incredibly multiple when it comes to his defensive fronts, and he's a genius. Mike Nolan's incredibly multiple with his defensive fronts, and he seems to be an idiot. So, these kinds of narratives I find fascinating. Last week, they obviously did not play well. They were a little soft up front, getting moved far too easily.
Yeah. So Deshaun Watson's going to have a new coach. I defended Bill O'Brien. I said he won post Jerry Sandusky at chaos at Penn State. He got Christian Hackenberg drafted. That was a feat. He goes to the NFL, and outside of the Deshaun Watson injury year, he had a winning record. He won a division with Brock Osweiler, and I'm like, I got. If I was a top college program, I'd hire him if I had an opening, and I think he deserves a second job. Is there anything, now that he is gone, how do you elevate Deshaun Watson? Their offensive line, they can't run the ball every time I watch them this year. What do you think they need to do to make it easier for Deshaun Watson going forward?
Well, I think Deshaun Watson's a fascinating evaluation. We know that he can be really good from the pocket within the structure of your offense. We know that he can be really good with his ability to make second reaction improvisational plays. We know that. But there's also an inconsistency to his game. There are times he doesn't see things clearly. There are times he holds the ball too much. There are times he leaves the pocket prematurely. In some ways, he's the kind of quarterback that you're not sure what you're going to get snap after snap. Now, I think he'll get there because he's a really smart kid, and I know he works very hard. But I think that there's just an inconsistency to his game. If people want to put that on Bill O'Brien, that's fine. But I think whether he plays this way his whole career, I guess we'll find out. But I think he's still a little bit of a work in progress.
Yeah. Aren't we all? Okay, so before I get to Belichick on Mahomes, which is, I think he's masterful, and he's had 4 first halves against Mahomes that have been very successful, I want to talk about Colts-Browns. So very quietly, the Colts have built an enormously tough defense.
Yes, they have.
They really, and I feel like Browns-Colts, it's kind of the same thing. They want to run the ball, play good defense, limit their quarterback. I just think the Colts are going to do a better job of it this weekend. What do you see in that Colts-Browns matchup?
Well, they're two teams that are very similar. And it's funny you say that. There's a number of teams now that have moved in that direction in terms of how they want to play. Minnesota's like that, clearly. So you're dealing with a Colts defense that is very front seven based. They don't blitz a lot. They rush the quarterback with 4. They've got a very good linebacking unit. They're multiple with their front looks. They've got a great 3-technique defensive tackle in DeForest Buckner, a really good linebacker in Darius Leonard. They got some people that a lot of people might not know about. They've got a nose tackle named Grover Stewart, who's a very good player. They still have Justin Houston. So they've got very good players, and they rely on that front 4 an awful lot. And it's a really good linebacking core. So these are two teams that are essentially built the same way, Colin. Let's run the ball. Let's play good defense. If our quarterback throws it 25 times, we're perfectly happy with that.
4 games against Patrick Mahomes, and Belichick in the first half has given him issues in all 4 first halves. What's the secret sauce? What does the tape say?
Well, he does it differently. That's the thing about Belichick. It's not always the same. There have been times where he's doubled Hill, doubled Kelsey. There's been times he's put corners on Kelsey. Last week, he played a lot of softer coverage, played a much higher percentage of zone coverage. They tend to be a more man-based defense, played far more zone coverage. So it's a different sauce, as you call it, every time, because Belichick rarely does the same thing. I think, look, this is not rocket science as far as an approach. You want to limit the big plays. That's the thing, because Mahomes is so special off structure and off schedule. You want to make sure you limit those plays. Now, he hit a few later. I remember the big play to Kelsey. They were in man coverage on that play. And Williams, who's a big corner / safety, he's sort of their man matchup on really good tight ends for the Patriots. And Kelsey beat him. But for the most part, it was a really strong performance. And obviously their offense couldn't get anything generated. So as the second half progressed, it was just a tough go.
Justin Herbert, Chargers, they named him the starter. My eyes tell me he looked a little bit, at the end of the year, that conservative Oregon coaching staff let it rip a little bit. And we were all like, Senior Bowl, Rose Bowl. You and I talk. We're like, that looks like an NFL starter early. What's the film say on him?
I think the film's been impressive. I think they're doing a really nice job with him. I mean, he's not at the point in his career where he's going to be a big-time progression reader, but he's tough in the pocket. He's physically imposing. What I like most, and this is important when I evaluate a quarterback, Colin, is he is willing to turn it loose.
Yep.
He's an aggressive thrower. And I think in the NFL, you have to be that way. Now, obviously, as you develop in your career, you want to make sure that you channel that a little bit, as Josh Allen has done to some extent.
Yeah.
But I think that Justin Herbert, it's in his DNA. He's going to throw the football, and I think you have to do that in the NFL.
Yeah, we tend to nitpick all these guys in college. Big, strong, smart, lets it rip, mobile, looks good to me. Finally, Joe Burrow is better than I thought. I said my comp was Tony Romo. I think he's done a terrific job with marginal protection. It's our play of the week, but let's just talk about what you see so far with the Bengals' young quarterback.
And Burrow's different than Herbert because he's not a big arm guy.
Yeah.
Burrow is a timing rhythm player, and they play to his strengths. They've been in empty sets far more than any team in the NFL. And when you're on empty, the ball comes out quick. But he has a very refined feel for progression reading for a young quarterback. The ball comes out. There's a rhythmic feel. Colin, you've watched quarterbacks for a long time. You can see when a quarterback plays rhythmically. And I think that Zach Taylor has done a really nice job sort of designing plays, and that's what we're going to look at. We're going to look at a really well-designed play right now, so we can run it and we'll see it. So here's a play from last week where he hits T. Higgins, who, by the way, is playing very well, and I think is going to be a really good player.
Yeah.
But here's an example. Here's what they wanted to get done. They wanted to get Higgins on this in-breaking route. We just saw the play. So Burrow is in the gun. So you want to get Higgins right there, right in the middle of the field on an in-breaking route. So who do you have to control on this play to do that? You have to control the two stacked linebackers, because otherwise they're going to be right in the middle of the passing lane.
All right.
So how do you control those two linebackers? This is where design football comes into play. The one that's closest to the bottom, to the top of the screen, you control with Drew Sample, the tight end. He's going to run a route through the formation. Now, what you do here is you control the one closest to Higgins with play action, and you get the linebacker to look into the backfield. As I said, the far linebacker, Drew Sample, controls him with his route. So what you're doing is you're expanding the two linebackers with what you do with in the backfield and with your route that opens the passing lane. Notice the rhythm throw. So this is designed, setting up your quarterback to make it what's essentially an easy throw, but you're setting him up beautifully. The ball can come out, you get run after catch, and you get a 30-yard gain.
Yeah, it's amazing how often just a little tweak by a receiver, a back, that just moves a safety or a linebacker, just leans him right, and you can go left. It's just amazing how often. It's just a little subtle step by a tight end to the left, moves a linebacker 2 steps over, there's the crease in the window, and Burrow delivers.
No, he's been very, when you see a player, particularly a quarterback, Colin, who looks like he did in college, you know he'll be a good player because he looks exactly the same as he did at LSU last year.
Good stuff, Greg Cosell, NFL Films. Thanks, Greg.
Thanks, Colin. Appreciate it.
Coming up next, a quarterback you're selling stock on, and I'm buying more of it. That's coming up. This month, Elijah Craig's continuing to build awareness by introducing listeners to greatness within Elijah Craig bourbon, specifically as it relates to their award-winning small batch. Every bottle of their award-winning small batch carries a signature warm spice and a subtle smoke flavor. Smooth, well-balanced. In fact, Elijah Craig was named Best Small Batch Bourbon at the San Francisco World Spirits Competition. Goes to show hard work and dedication lead to great things. If you're watching the game tonight, maybe the finals, Heat Lakers at home, enjoy it with a glass of Elijah Craig. Discover the greatness within. Pick up a bottle today. You can also order it online. The Herd brought to you by Elijah Craig Kentucky Straight Bourbon Whiskey, Bardstown, Kentucky, 47% alcohol by volume. Elijah Craig reminds you to think wisely, drink wisely. Elijah Craig.